This session is a much anticipated follow-up to Martin's hugely popular CIOL webinar on AI that we ran in April 2025. In this session, he will explore the current state of generative AI tools and their practical applications for translation professionals, sharing insights from his ongoing experimentation and examining capabilities that are changing how many translators are working. He'll also reflect on how widely attitudes within the profession have shifted from initial apprehension towards a strategic use of AI. Martin, it's wonderful to have you here. How are you?
Fantastic. Hi, Dom. Hi, colleagues. I'm good. Can you hear me properly from my headset?
Absolutely. And we can see your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for this great introduction. And thanks for the invitation to participate in this amazing conference. I hope I'll be in person at a future meeting, but for now we're here. Gabriela, thanks so much for the comments leading to my presentation, and also to the other speakers who shared really useful and interesting insights. 2 notes before we start. First of all, if you are familiar with Slido, please get your Slido page ready. We'll go to that in a minute. And the other thing is, I have my second screen here where I'm showing the presentation, so you're going to see me looking that way, okay? All right, so let's start. First of all, here's a quick list of some topics we're going to be discussing today. Here's a short bio. You can take either a snapshot, or I can tell you a bit more about me. For example, my not for everyone is usually audiences who struggle with complex topics, try to make explanations as simple as possible, especially on technology applied to translation. I'm also speaking about diversification and so on. I am a masseur. I also love languages, swimming, gardening, and so on. And I live with my mother. So kudos to all of you who live with your parents. Also, this presentation is dedicated to these 4 people: Marita Propato, David Epstein, Laura Cariola, Santiago de Miguel. They are key reasons why we're speaking here today, so that's why we're here, and of course to you. All right, so some objectives of this presentation will be to share some insights of what we have nowadays, also to provide you with actionable resources so that you can take them to your real practice, explore a little bit of some between quotation marks uncharted territory, some considerations for the short to mid-term, and also this is my view as an end user translator. Okay, I'm not a developer, I'm not a strategist or whatever. This is like just pressing the buttons and see what happens. Of course, it's applicable to other fields, such as other language specializations or other disciplines. Okay. Please don't worry if you don't understand everything that I mentioned, because I go into several topics. Just follow along with me, and we can get to the end of the presentation. Okay, so our point 2: what to expect from language models, and here is where the interaction begins. Okay, I would like to propose 2 groups of ideas. The first one would be these 4, let's say, conversation starters, okay? So I would like to invite you to join this Slido interaction. You can do it with your phone, for example, by scanning the QR code on the screen, or you can go to slido.com and write, when it asks you for the code, write these 7 numbers. Sometimes you put them together, sometimes you put them with the space. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Sohila, for putting it on the chat too. All right. So we see here on the screen, okay, that we have only the heading, but on your screen, you're going to see this list that I showed you before, the 4 topics, okay? So I would like to ask you to reflect on any of those topics. We can take 1 minute or so to, to know your opinion, because, apart from, having a panel of speakers, also we have a lot of professionals with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. And maybe, you can also share your insights on what you think, what you agree on, what you disagree on, etc. Okay, so I may not be able to read everything, but we can see it on the screen. Okay, so you can know what other colleagues are sharing. All right, for example, NDA issues, often not accurate enough, lacking cultural references, lots of potential. Pre-translations block creative flow. I really like that one. Not fit for purpose. Great tool as long as you know your stuff. By the way, I would like to mention that I attended another conference on technology recently. For those of you who attended JAMCAT, I think that the most frequent word was experimentation, And so far today, probably the most frequently used term has been nuance, which is really interesting, right? And of course, expertise, they are most, um, together on top of the list. Okay, so we see a lot of opinions. Of course, we will leave some more time because some colleagues probably are typing their um, their um, their ideas and their insights and knowledge. Okay, cannot cope with the Finnish grammar. That's really nice. Accountable, human, debatable, AI, and so on. We have some more colleagues typing. Okay, um, convincing even when it's talking nonsense. That's a key insight too, and so on. Let's move on to the next one and see um, this one. This one's really interesting too, and it's one of the topics that came up a lot today. The missing human factor related to the AI developments. For example, context, reference, sentiments, nuance. Do we really need AI to do a great job? How much do we need AI to parallel or surpass human expertise and everything else that makes us special? Um, where in the process would we put AI? A colleague asked me that question the other day, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so let's go back to the Slido. Oh, we have several comments already. As a tool of assistant, people still want people to do the final check at least. Think with your brain first. Often overwordy answers. Must be used in conjunction with translator. Useful for technical translation. We don't need AI to do a great job, but it helps us to do a quicker job. Takes on, some load of our hands and shoulders and in general. Initial research with caution. Yesterday I was at an interpreters meeting, and this one was one of the key points that came up too. A tool, not a solution, only used with human oversight. Second draft, provide suggestions, develops in the details. Sometimes AI outputs sound too good to be true, right? Okay, so we'll stay here some more seconds, and then we'll go back to the presentation. Okay. AI is hopeless when it comes to produce authentic text addressing consumers. Well, Gabriela's presentation, for example, is a clear example of this. Careful with bias that's right there on the surface, and the bias that's, a bit deeper, but is still there. Okay, thank you so much for this interaction. If we have some time at the end, then we'll go back to our Slido, okay? And then, of course, we can share the answers and so on. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Are we asking the right questions? What makes a good prompt? There's at the beginning there was a lot of gurus saying your ideal prompt is this and that. Now there's a lot of debate of what to do and what not to do, and it seems that all the approaches work. So probably, again, it depends on the context, on your purpose, and so on. As to how we are going to structure our ideal prompt. The objective, what we need the system to do, provide context, provide examples, which are usually really a good, induction for the language models. Staged approach, especially when we have processes that have several complex operations, then we can, put several steps. The length, some people say, the more detailed and the more specific and so on is better. Some people say just go with, I saw a post on Instagram the other day saying like cave people language, it's better, and so on. Something really interested that I read recently, what I'm not, what I don't use, how I don't address colleagues or people. For example, what Gabriela, I mentioned Gabriela because it's the freshest, the freshest presentation that I have. But of course, I, I I found a lot of other presentations very interesting. Gabriela, no, I forgot. But what I'm not, it's new approaches of how to speak to the AI. And for example, I can say, like Gabriela said, I don't use so many acronyms, and if I do use them, I explain them to my colleagues so that they don't get lost along the way. Other, of course, and enhancement via either language models saying this is my prompt, how can I make it better, or looking for solutions that help us enhance our prompts. One step beyond prompting language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and so on, we can work with agents. Agents are quite fashionable nowadays. You can develop your own agents, but we can see what they do. They can do any repetitive task or any kind of complex series of steps that we need the AI that we may be doing and we ask the AI to do. They can be standard agents out of the box, the OTB agents that are prepared for something, or we can customize our own agents. Maybe some of you have used ChatGPT to do your custom agents, or you have used Microsoft Copilot, and so on. Okay, that one key point for the agents is that the user experience is quite friendly, so you don't need to be learning how to code in Python to to use an agent. Okay, the model and the knowledge base, the famous KB, are very influential on what happens with what we do with agents. And of course, the access to the internet is optional. So we may even be able to work with agents without a connection to the internet, without, for example, Wi-Fi or wired or whatever. Thank you so much to Jose Blanco Perez from the IMF, who came up with this. He brought up this topic in a very friendly and very clear fashion. So I just took, I was like, we should include that in the presentation. Okay, let's go a little bit into something you can do for whatever you need to do, which is building your own agents. Okay. So first of all, you can choose your favorite platform, like I mentioned before, ChatGPT, Claude, and so on. And we have here a sort of layout of what we can find when we're going to build our own agent. And the ones that I underlined are the ones that are on the next two slides, which are more specific, have more specific information on those two, about you, how you want the agent to behave, what's the objective, the rules, the steps, examples, and so on. Okay, so here are some elements that you're going to need when building your own agent. So let's go first with the about you and the behavior, and then the other four. Okay. Oh, and of course we can, this is definitely something you are going to need to do, which is optimizing your agent and just any other process on the go. Okay. So the about you, what I do, I'm a technical translator. How I speak, for example, I use, let's say that for this, I want to use my local dialect of Spanish, which is from the, from the Rio de la Plata area, all the way to the south and to the west of the world. Anyways, my locale, do I use figurative language? From what area? What I'm not, I don't use acronyms. I don't use the masculine to generalize. And so on. Okay. And the behavior of the agent, what type of answer I want. I don't expect any explanations, just the result of the search, let's say. The output format, for example, a table, an Excel file, a string of code, and so on. The length of the sentences, the formatting, the language used. For example, I can provide rules on how to deal with numbers, measurements, and so on. Okay. And something that I saw recently too, that what's not AI, for me at least, you probably have seen by now several sites where they say how to detect something that's AI, and they're like a series of features. Well, we can, take those features and say, please don't use these recurrent phrases, structures, and so on, and linguistic resources to, in order to sound more like me, or at least more, not so AI. And here we have 4 different scenarios on how we would build the inside of the agent. Okay, I'm only going to take one. For example, the review one. Okay, the third one. The objective, what I wanted to do. Check the original. I'm speaking about translation here, but maybe we can do a monolingual text anyway. Check the text and report on detected issues, which could be grammar, mistranslations, I don't know, omissions, I don't know, capitalization, punctuation, and so on. For example, the rules that I provide to the agent, for example, stick to the APA norms and general English or your language usage, your working language, I mean. Then the workflow. Okay, here are the steps that I need you to do. Ask me for source and target language, then ask for the source and target text, then ask for additional steps and rules and so on. Okay, so here is only a nutshell and a very compressed version of how we can firstly approach how to build our own agent, and it would be great to know if you do and what your results are, or if you have other ideas for building agents. Maybe there is something else that you need to do. I don't know, answer emails, find sources of terms, find alternatives for different terminology elements and so on. Okay. I would like to know, maybe via reactions, if any of you use computer-assisted translation tools, the program which is in your computer or on a website that helps us do translations and streamline our translation workflow. For example, you can go like with your thumbs up or any reactions, okay? I use CAD tools a lot, which is these environments. And some of you do and some of you don't. I see, because I see the thumb down. So, okay. All right. So For those of you who don't, maybe this is an interesting opportunity to see what there is to it. Okay, and for those of you who don't, and for those of you who do, maybe this might also have an interesting information for you. So from our CAT tools, we can access a variety of large language models like ChatGPT-5, the Gemini, and the Claude models, and so on. These are usually subscription-based, so you may need to pay a subscription, but still not in all the cases. These plugins or features from these platforms come with preset prompts that you only need to click and it does something, or you can create or customize your prompt. And there's a lot of development right now, and there's a lot of beta versions of a lot of things. So this is not the last word about this. Okay, here's a very summarized list for available for us as end users, not as companies, not as developer. I mean, I'm a freelance translator who has a platform, and I have all these available in the computer. Okay, so Word Fast Anywhere, Trail Studio 2024, GT4T, Cafeteria Espresso, WordScope, SmartCut, Plus Tools, and so on. Most of these are either free or provide a free trial versions, and some of these too have some like bonus subscriptions to use the language models in case you want to try them or if you have tried them. And this is a point that I think is really interesting, especially for the midterm, which is experimenting with SLMs, says there, small language models, which are the the tiny siblings or the large language models. The learning curve for now is a bit steep, so you can do with some patience, but it's not impossible. I mean, if I could do it, then you can do it. Okay. So, and the main advantages of small language models, well, if they're smaller, portability, privacy, in some cases, trainability. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Okay. And these two, this is the last topic before we close. These two are two kind of places of opportunity in the short to midterm, even though they are not that user friendly or accessible right now, but it's worth mentioning. The first of them is known as RAG. It's not something new, but for us end users and people who just need to do a click and have everything done, this is getting closer to being more friendly. A retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is a combination of a language model that is somewhere, for example, on a platform or in your computer, plus your materials. You use your glossaries, your translated files, your monolingual content, etc. And one approach to RAG is that the corpus is the prompt. So you may not even need to give many instructions or to elaborate instructions to the models in order to get an output, that means a response, that's usable. You may, I emphasize the may, okay? The language models regarding storage work as usual, okay? They do what they know how to do, which is a mystery to us. And your materials stay in your computer, all right? And the advantage of this is that for those of you who work with CAT tools, that sometimes you have a huge translation memory, which is that database that stores your translations. The system in this case doesn't go through all the material, but it goes straight to the necessary info. How it does it, I have no idea, but that's what it does. And the output, the result of the interaction, may provide a lower level of hallucination. It sounds a bit more like you, and depending on the platform, it may be a bit faster. The framework is not so unfamiliar. Actually, for example, when we were mentioning agents before, the approach is more or less similar to this, because to agents, you can also load your corpus. The difference is that if they are web-based, you're putting your stuff in a website, okay? But the approach may be more or less like that. Some platforms like Cloud, via their paid solution called Cowork, allow local operation, but your files are in your computer and you speak with the cloud model, which is on the website, okay, or whatever they have it. And there are several new developments for CAD tools. The other day I saw a plugin that puts all this and more into one of the main CAD tools nowadays. Before I forget, also, to take it a step further, even though it's not in the presentation, I'm starting to see several colleagues who are developing their own either applications or plugins, which, take either this approach or the following approach, which is the small language models. This, to me, and for us as freelancers or as individual professionals, may have, pose an opportunity, because especially if they become more user-friendly. The models are lighter, the training is way smaller, some are faster, some are not, some do weird stuff, and some do more appropriate stuff. They highlight the difference between generalization and specialization, because when we speak about small language models, we speak about a little box where we can, feed all the domain-specific information that we need to, to use for whatever we do. In terms of privacy, since the data, in this case, the small language model, you do download it from a website, but then when you use it in your computer, if you're not connected to the internet, it works. That means, for those familiar with the terms, you can do a machine translation, pre-translation, without being connected to the internet using a small language model. By the way, one of the most trendy ones is Helsinki. Okay, so if you want to look it up, that's one that's very recommended, especially with, well, my language combinations, English and Spanish, and it has several European languages too. And regarding this is something that not everyone mentions, regarding the environment, since we do less interaction with the internet, basically, it's less, usage of everything, and among several other things, this would imply less water usage and a smaller carbon footprint. Like the tap, the water tap, even a drop of water counts. So, multiplied by millions of users, this may be interesting too. All right, so to wrap it up, we are 10 minutes away from the end of the presentation. So let's see. Here are some more statements that I also took to the Slido. Okay, so if you want, we can take like 1 minute to know your insights on these statements. Okay. If you are on the Slido, you can just see it. I'll read them out loud here because I don't have them on the Slido. There are more news everywhere and every day. Okay, we also heard Gerard speak about the the overload of information, especially in social media. Some developments are starting to settle. Some others are not, but they are creating a platform to new developments. And of course, some platforms are more more popular for the general public. Okay, so if you want to share your thoughts on that, we can leave that part of the Slido open. My last comments on this, and then we can go back to Dom or Sahila. Keywords for AI that I noticed in 2023, like Dom mentioned at the beginning, fear and suspicion. 2024, to me, it was curiosity. The one of the most named terms in terms of AI in 2025 to me was hallucination, and this year definitely experimentation. My question would be beyond now. Are we entering a phase of consistency or what? So thank you again so much. Here's some information about me, or you have a QR code that uh, leads to my link tree that I update frequently. So if you want, you can take a look at that. And then we have some comments here. All right, so now I'll wait a little bit and see if we have comments, questions, or if we have some time left for something else.
Fantastic,
Thank
Martin. Well,
you.
we can leave that running while we cover some of the questions that have that are coming in.
Sure.
So one question from someone: if I had to pick one AI tool to use, sort of Gen AI sort of thing, tool, not cat tools, to pay for, which one would that be?
Whoa, that's a question that gets very close to me because I have been paying ChatGPT for since I started using it. Actually, I have a kind of double license of ChatGPT. If you are aware of this, you have the general ChatGPT website where you know access the ChatGPT 5 and so on models and you speak to them. And then you have the OpenAI license, which allows you to bring those interactions into your software outside the website. Okay, so it's a long answer, but I'm going to going to the end of it. So what I started seeing is that the stuff that I've been mentioning and a lot of the stuff that I'm really looking forward to trying out are coming more from the side of Claude. So what I decided to do is to cancel my current ChatGPT web subscription and keep the OpenAI subscription because I still use it, in the software, but move the web interaction into Claude, especially because I want to try the RAG approach, the retrieved augmented generation approach, which means working with my material locally with responses from the cloud models based on the cloud or on the web. This, of course, is a highly biased answer, but that would be my personal response today. I don't know what will happen next week.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you.
Another question here. Somebody would love to use AI to create invoices. Is that a sort of role you would suggest would be suitable for AI? And would there be any security or data concerns with doing that?
I am giving a mostly uninformed answer because I learned this yesterday during an informal conversation. But what you may want to do is we may have this as a as a future conversation, but a good way, an interesting way to go would be to ask your language model to create you a sort of widget or application that you can download to your computer and use locally, emphasizing the fact that you don't want an internet connection to do it. So you get that, you download it. It's usually an XML file. Okay, so you're going to get it, locally in your computer. When you open it, it's going to open the browser, but if you disconnect the internet, it still works because it's a local file. And then see if you can do a sort of merge with, for example, an Excel file which has your invoicing information, or you can have a sort of, have this widget be a sort of fillable form that you can use to then produce your invoice. Going back to the beginning, which where one of the points was the hassle and how useful it can be and so on. There may be some other applications, such as, for example, your word processing application and your worksheet application that can do a merge, via the I know it by mail a correspondence combination or mail combination. I don't know the name in English. I usually use it in Spanish. Combinación de correspondencia would be in Spanish. What you do is
Mail
you.
merge?
Sorry, Dom?
Is that mail merge? Is that?
Mail merge. Yeah, that's what it's
That's the
called.
one. Yeah, yeah.
So what you do is you create a form on Word and you link that form to an Excel spreadsheet, basically, and you click on merge mail. And what it does is, put the information in individual, results of the form, and it does it automatically, almost automatically. You first need to set up everything. So what the AI may assist with in this case, if you take that approach, is to tell you how to create the form and then how to execute it, how to run it. Oh, we see
Right.
that there's a lot of comments here, by the
There's many
way.
comments in there. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
we have some more time or some more comments or
We
questions?
have. I mean, the questions are still coming in. A question which quite a few people have asked actually is about Helsinki SLM and a bit more. Not entirely clear what that is. Maybe you could explain a little bit more.
Yes. There's platform called like the emoji hugging face, the one that's like that.
Right.
There's
Yes. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
website called Hugging Face, which is a platform where developers put what they do, right? And
Right.
for us translators, or even linguists in general, there's a big part of that community that is constantly uploading, updating, and sharing language models. All right. So, in the case, which is you go to a post by a user, you look for your language model, and you see if it's compatible with with your needs and so on, and you can download it to your computer. The thing is, the language model doesn't work on its own, but it's a sort of group of files that can be used for what you need to do, but you need an environment. Usually that environment, or at least nowadays, the environment to use the small language model are, for us translators, CAT tools. All right, and CAT tools are striving to include that feature in their in their functions, in their menu, um, and I would say that you know how to put it, the less complicated approach would be going to Hugging Face, look for, I think it's called Helsinki dash the hyphen NLP
Right.
hyphen MT hyphen and then your language combination. Or you can leave it without the language combination and you see all the all the possible combinations. And this Helsinki small model is actually part of a longer project which has put an emphasis on how to make a quality translation engine available for general users. Um, so if you are an initial user, you like 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 Gabriela mentioned, you may need a little of patience and practice and get to, know a bit more about the ecosystem,
Yeah,
and then see how to bring your small language model into your, for example, your CAT tool of choice. The ones that, can I mention two brands? Is it possible,
of
Tom?
course. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. We're not
Okay.
endorsing any individual brands, but you can certainly mention them, of course.
Okay, the ones I've been using a lot for working with small language models are WordFast Anywhere, which is almost free or comes with your WordFast Pro subscription, and Treadle Studio. And with this, I see that we are 2 minutes over, so I am ready to turn everything off. And thank you so much again.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Martin, for that fascinating, exciting, at times possibly almost overwhelming, but still very, very interesting session. We've had loads of comments coming in, and what a dynamic sort of area it is. So that was very, very useful. Thank you for all the practical tips there.